the dice. This is it. High fly ball into right
Welcome to Fed Up, the #1 podcast where you can get up on all things Federal League. I am your host, Josh Stoll. Another great week of baseball in the books for the Federal League. Lots of teams in actions, a lot of great performances, some upsets, some notable games already taking place in just the 5th week of the season. Dive into our full scoreboard recap. We'll also bring you our latest Fed Up power rankings. We've got some excellent guests lined up for you today. The real Housewives of the Federal League will be joining us via our virtual studio. Certainly looking forward to speaking with them. So let's get to the action in the American League North. The game of the week featured the South Metro Saints traveling to Castle Field to take on the Minoka Grays. And the defending champs were just overwhelmed in this one. Saints get a run in the first and throw up a 6 spot in the 3rd inning. They would eventually lead 8-0 before the champs got serious. They loaded the bases and do get 3 in the bottom of the 6th, but that was the final 8-3. South Metro Saints ends the undefeated run for the Minoka Grays in just the 4th contest of the year for the Grays. Highlights for the South Metro Saints. Grant Shara on the bump for the Saints. The lefty was very good, throws a complete game, allows just 5 hits and 3 earned runs, strikes out 8 during his time on the mound. Eric Hill, give yourself a shout out in the parking lot report. He went 3 for 5 and scored 3 times. Cody Candler added a pair of hits. For the Grays, Michael Crane was good. He went 2 for 2 with an RBI. Martinez was also 2 for 3 for the Grays. He added a stolen base. Notable that the Grays were without Jack Nelson. He seemed to be on a remote island in Canada somewhere, but can't take anything away from South Metro Saints as they continue their hot start in the young season. Also in action in the American League North, the Minneapolis Bombers had a pair of games. They did take on the Minoka Grays and were drubbed in that one 15-2. They also took on the Tonka Bay Lakers, losing that one 5-2. The Capital City Cannons took on the East Metro Mammoth. The Mammoth winners of that game 8-4. Red West Legends took on the St. Michael Angels, and Dan Pluff would not be denied again. He goes 6 innings, allowing just 3 hits and no earned runs and 7 Ks in his time on the mound. Sean Model does come on for the 1-inning save. Final Wintercrest Park, St. Michael Angels 3, the Red West Legends 0. In the American League East, so we mentioned those South Metro Saints. They had a doubleheader as well on Sunday. They went into River Falls where they would take on both the River Falls Groupers and the St. Croix Valley Silverbacks. Saints come up short, maybe a little hangover from the Grays win, but they lose both those games 3-2 to River Falls and 4-2 to St. Croix Valley. Drops the Saints to 4-2. RCU Rockets were in action taking on the St. Anthony Norsemen. The Norsemen continue their hot start and they win that game 9-7. No sighting yet of Colin Warren in the box score, but Anthony Molinar did have 3 hits for the Rockets. Also, Javier Ramos and Kyle Brendan-Mule had a pair of hits for the Rockets, as they did have 10 hits in the game, as did St. Anthony. Aaron Kohler, the leadoff hitter, had a couple of hits. John Novak went 3 for 4 with 3 RBI. Stefan Gingerich does get the complete game win in that one for the Norsemen. The American West, the Chaska teams were very active as the Voyagers had a pair of games, both against the Rockford Rail Splitters. Both teams holding serve in their home games as the Rockford Rail Splitters win their home game 14-4. The Chaska Voyagers get them back, though, in the second half from Missile Park, with the Voyagers winning 7-6. Jeff Klabitz goes yard for the Voyagers. Lee Dahlwalter does get the win for the Voyagers. He throws a complete game, gives up 6 runs, just 2 of them earned, strikes out 5, as he gets the W for the Voyagers. Waconia Islanders make their Federal League debut against the Elko Chuggers, and they get off to a hot start, winning their first game 6-1. The Eden Prairie Flyers took on the Lakeville Lobos, and it wasn't pretty for the Flyers as they are still looking for their first win. They lose to the Lobos 11-1. Lobos continue beating up their American League West schedule as they took on the Chaska Diamonds as well. The final from this one was Lakeville 12, Diamonds 0. The Minnetonka Mustangs get their second win of the season as they are now 2-1. They beat the Chaska Diamonds 10-5. Plenty of action in the American League South. The Burnsville Bulldogs notch a couple of wins, one of them by forfeit, our first forfeit recorded of the season. This was over the Lonsdale Jokers. By rule, that is a 7-0 final. Burnsville also does dime the Vesely Vulcans 11-1. The Northfield Millers had a pair of games. They were dimed by the Rosemount Pipers as they continued their torrent run after their opening game loss. The Millers also lost to the St. Paul Senators 3-1. Hurricanes from Hastings had a pair of games. They took on the Apple Valley A's in a pitching duel where Derek Pfeffer throws a complete game on his 40th birthday. He outdueled Tim Scott. The A's led 1-0 late in that one, but the Hastings Hurricanes score 1 in the 6th and 2 in the 7th, where they grabbed the victory 3-1. Hastings also took on the Milltown Outlaws, coming out on top 5-4. Hurricanes now 3-1 on the season. A's were in action once again on Sunday as they took on the St. Paul JTs in their opener. Dave Johnson goes the distance for the JTs as he goes 6 hits but no runs and strikes out 6 as the A's offensive struggles do continue. Josh Stoll goes the distance for the A's, allowing just 1 earned, but does take the loss in that one. A completely unrelated note, our Fed Up question of the week: if your entire team is struggling offensively at the same time, how would you break out of it? Fed Up wants to know. Over to the National League West, Metro Loons took on the Minnetonka Mustangs. No posted final yet for that one. And another candidate for Game of the Week, the Tonka Bay Lakers took on the Minnetonka Saints. Brower outlasting Brandon Casa de Calvo in that one. The Lakers edged the Saints 2-1. Troy Koenig was 3 for 3 for the Lakers. Joe Collier, also a pair of hits for the Saints. Finally, some action in the National League South. Some games we haven't covered yet. The Newmarket Northerns had a couple of games. They were upset by the Vesely Vulcans 6-2, but recovered nicely against the Lonsdale Jokers. Found themselves back in the win column as they beat the Jokers 7-6. Finally, Lakeville had another game. They go 3-0 on the week. They beat the Elko Chuggers 10-2. Our updated Fed Up power rankings. In the 10 spot, we have the Burnsville Bulldogs making their debut. They do get a win by a forfeit, but they moved to 3-1 on the season and cracked the top 10 for the first time this year. Also making their debut in the power rankings, number 9, the Hastings Hurricanes. With a pair of wins, they move to 3-1 and find themselves at the 9 spot. Rockford Rail Splitters in at number 8, also at 3-1 on the season. Splitting up air games with the Chaska Voyagers. At number 8 is the Rockford Rail Splitters. Rosemount Pipers in at number 7. They are 4-1 and continue to lean heavily on Cliff Christopherson as he continues to just shut down entire teams. They are 4-1 of the season and in at number 7. Dropping to 6 are the Newmarket Northerns that lost to Vesely. Certainly a chink in the armor for the Northerns. They are 3-1, but look for them to continue their winning ways. Number 5, the Tonka Bay Lakers. They are 3-0, and Jim Brower looks good, getting some offense when they need it. Undefeated, and in at number 5 are the Tonka Bay Lakers. At number 4, the River Falls Groupers. They are also undefeated, 3-0, knocking off the hot start South Metro Saints. Dave Meyer throwing well, Derek Marks pitching well. That team seems to be firing on all cylinders early in the season. They are 3-0 and in at number 4. Dropping to number 3, our defending champs, the Minoka Grays. They're 4-1. Obviously, not a time to panic yet for the Grays, but they do lose their bid for an undefeated season. They are 4-1 and in at number 3. Staying at number 2 are the East Metro Mammoth. They are 3-0 and no slowing down for the Mammoth as they continue to take care of business very comfortably against everybody on their schedule. But the Lakeville Lobos have scheduled 6 games in May, have won all decisively. They look really fantastic. They have leapfrogged the East Metro Man for that top spot in our power rankings. The Lakeville Lobos in at number 1 on the Fed Up Power Rankings. If you are a player in this league, what I'm about to tell you should come as no surprise. Our wives, the mothers of our children, are the absolute unsung heroes of this league for continuing to support us and do the things that our family needs to be able to allow us to continue our pursuit of this hobby we call baseball. I wanted to have a few of them on the podcast to celebrate them, to acknowledge some of the sacrifices that they make so that we can continue to play. Joining us now, representatives from 3 different teams in the league. Let's bring them on. Well, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce some very VIP guests to the podcast. We have some real representatives, some housewives of the Federal League. We've got 3 teams represented on our panel tonight, and I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves. But ladies, welcome to Fed Up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, hi, I'm Megan Cogswell. I'm here for the Apple Valley A's. My husband is Brian Cogswell, and I have 2 kids.
Hi, I am Jennifer Marshall. My husband is Ryan Marshall, plays for the TC Snappers, and I have, 2 stepchildren, so we have, 2 kids.
I am Cindy Smolik. My husband is Dan Smolik, and he plays for the East Metro Mammoth, and we have 1 daughter, Cameron. She's 6 years old.
Awesome. I'm Whitney. My husband Paul plays for the Mammoth, and we have 3 kids.
And I'm Heather. My husband's Tom. He plays for the Mammoth. We have 3 kids, 8, 6, and 2.
Great. I thought we'd just warm up with just a round of, I'm going to call them popcorn questions. These questions are about your husbands, all right? And I will hand them out. I'll sign them, but maybe they're a little revealing, but not too bad. They should just warm up to get the blood flowing a little bit. All right. So first question's for Jennifer. Does Ryan get upset after a loss?
Yes, he's been known to do that, yes. Throw helmets, that kind of stuff.
Okay, all right. My kind of guy wears his emotions on his sleeve a little bit.
Yeah.
This one for you, Megan. Does your husband stay a little late after games? Does he have a propensity to parking a lot a little too often?
Yeah, pretty much every game. I think he's usually one of the last ones to leave the field. But I will say that I have known to close down the field with him at times, and so have our children.
Perfect.
You're all sports, yep, for doing that. Whitney, does he ever battle any injuries during the season?
Thankfully not yet this season, but it's early. But he has struggled with back injuries over the years, and they always coincided with the birth of a child. So it was really excellent timing. So
So that just happened to act up just at the right time for him. Cindy, does your husband have a propensity to spend too much money on baseball equipment? Does that sound like Dan?
Not really. He doesn't spend a whole lot of money on anything, so no, he's the wallet's pretty closed a lot.
Well, hopefully not on date night.
Yeah. Yeah, but he always seems to find the money for, trips to Arizona for the World Series and that kind of stuff.
Last popcorn questions for you, Heather. Does Tom have any weird game day superstitions?
yeah, I mean, baseball is supposedly like a superstitious sport, right? I didn't think so, but actually today he was going through his bag because it's laundry time, and he was like laughing to himself, looking at his pants that are all dirty, and kind of like not sure if he was going to wash them again before next week because I think he had a good weekend or something. I'm not sure. I think. And so I don't know. Maybe it's going to become these pair of pants that he'll keep in their original condition from kind of the start of the season.
That'll make
Well,
for
there we go. Literally airing some dirty laundry here on Fed Up this week. But yes, that's enough about the husbands. I think, ladies, you are the guests and certainly the very underrated stars of the Federal League. And the rest of the questions and the rest of our time, I really want to focus on you and the relationship that you have uniquely with the Federal League. So questions for everybody, and I'll let you kind of maybe take it in order of the way we introduce ourselves, but I want to know what kind of fan you are at games. Would you say you're a talker, a yeller, a pacer, or a goner? What would you say if you had to pick of those four? What would you say, Megan?
If my kids are there, I'm a goner. If my kids are not there, I'm a talker.
Yep.
Yeah, fair. I love it, Jen.
Talker. I get the walk-up music time, and I've been known to forget to turn that off when there's a batter in the batting box in the up to bat. Oh, I'm like, I don't want to be in charge anymore.
We ran into you guys in a playoff game at Alley Magnet a couple of years ago, and I think I remember that you are kind of a talker
yeah.
in terms
Not-
of that. I love it. I love it. Cindy, what would you say you are of those four?
Well, I'll echo what Megan said. You know, if my daughter's there, it's just whatever, keeping her entertained. And then I don't usually get to games a whole lot without her. So, but if I do go solo, then I watch then.
But Whitney.
I was such a goner. Oh my gosh, you guys. When I do get there, I mean, I've got 3 really young kids, but you know, just always distracted. So
Fair. That's great that you can self-diagnose though, right?
yes.
Heather, what would you say you are?
Yeah, maybe literally a goner. I think we usually drop Tom off at the field for BP, and then we'll find like grocery store shopping or Target or something. So we'll be gone for a couple of innings and then come back and still be pretty gone mentally. But you know, we're there. We're like cheering as much as we can. See one in every 5 hits or so.
Yeah, and that might all be the same game with your husband, but yeah. So take care of some errands, all right, while you drop Tom off. I love that. Have any of you spent a birthday, Mother's Day, or anniversary at a ballpark? Megan, you look like you're nodding your head. Have you been there? Spent any of those major
Yep.
holidays at a ballpark?
Yep. The World Series weekend is always that last weekend in August, and that's my birthday weekend every single year. So anytime the A's make it to the World Series, that's where I'm at.
Jen looked like you had something to add to that.
Well, I got engaged on my birthday 3 years ago at Big Willow.
Okay.
So yes,
Oh, look at that.
yes. And I'm gonna be
How
honest,
can you not be romantic about baseball?
right? Got the whole team involved, so that was fun. And I was completely oblivious.
Wow.
I don't even remember who we played, but I do know it was on my birthday. So
Well, what a softie, Ryan. And you, of
Right?
course, said yes.
I did, yes. Our second anniversary is on June 4th, and there happens to be a Snappers game that day, which my husband will not be playing in. So, and not by choice, not by choice. So he had surgery earlier this year. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, shoulder and right arm. So yeah, not playing much this year. He's tried batting, and he came home and was like, "Yeah, that's probably not a good choice until." You know, doctor said a 9-month healing time, but you know, we like to self-diagnose in this health, so and no more than our doctors and our physical therapists, I guess. So
Yeah, well, we will certainly revisit that later on in the podcast. Cindy, I know that you may not have spent your birthday at the ballpark, but some very special birthdays happen to occur during some very notable times in the Federal League season.
Yeah, so our daughter's birthday is October 27th, which always happens to be the week of the tournament in Arizona. And Dan's missed probably like 4 of her actual birthdays because he's been down there playing. So, but I always made sure that I schedule the birthday party for when he's going to be home because I'm like, you're not getting out of that. I need help with that. So, you guys have
Entertaining,
fun.
cleaning, cooking.
Yeah.
Well, knowing Dan, I'm sure he more than makes up for being away from that time. But yeah, certainly can understand that. Um, Heather, have you ever had to explain that your husband doesn't play softball?
Great question. Like he calls it, I hope this isn't offensive, but he calls this kind of jokingly the old man league, which all of our relatives think is funny, and I think they probably envisioned a softball league. They
Sure.
haven't seen it. And so when we talk about a staff's book being involved and like actually playing all innings and it going into the night, needing lights, like all that stuff, I think that surprises them.
Yeah, it's a distinction that many of us have to make quite often, that this is not indeed softball. And I think many people that we tell just what we're doing in the old man league, and that is not offensive. It's actually quite endearing, I think, for many of us. But we certainly have to make that distinction. I think a lot of our loved ones, when they do show up to games, are surprised by the level of competitiveness and the ability that some of those old dogs can still muster up. Do any of you have something that you like to do for yourself that kind of keeps the balance? Your husbands all have baseball as their hobby, but is there something that you like to do that kind of provides you with some alone time or some just recentering for yourself? Any hobbies that you really get into? What about you, Megan?
I'm a big runner, so just going for some runs by myself. And I also really like to get my nails done. It's a nice little zen time where nobody's saying my name. It's nice and quiet for about an hour.
Yes.
No, mom, mommy, mom.
No, nope, none of that.
Jen, you echo that?
Yes, I'm a runner, not a long distance marathon runner by any means, but I do enjoy running, put my music in, and just, yeah, it's the best.
Cindy and Whitney, I know that you share a common passion away from the diamond that you indulge in. Care to share about that?
We do. Whitney and I are big Bravo fans. So we take Bravo themed vacations. Last year we went out to Los Angeles and this summer we're going to Charleston.
Like Bravo,
Well,
the show with
Like LA was the Vanderpump Rules circuit, so we went to Sir and Tom Tom, and Charleston is Southern Charm. So we're gonna be hitting up Sewing Down South, all of the Bravo places.
awesome.
Yeah, I could see this episode of Fed Up being used as your casting call for the Real Housewives of the Federal League. So Bravo executives, be on notice. Got some available takers here. Yes. All right, I want to transition into kind of the genesis of this whole interview. Really, for me, it started because of a Twitter account. It's called the Real Housewives of the Federal League. They started weighing in on some topics that I feel are very pertinent to a lot of the wives and mothers in the league. They started talking about things like concession stands and bathrooms and rating the top fields. One of the things, and we'll get into those here in a minute, some of the fields that you think do a good and bad job with that. But one of the lists that they put together that I thought was of particular note was the most handsome team. And the winner of that poll ended up being the East Metro Mammoth. Would any of the five of you agree with those results?
I mean, I can't disagree. Like, I married one of them. I did question the validity of that poll. Like, where'd that come from and who were the voters? But, all power to them.
Um, another So Jen, another list that gave you some love. They ranked the best wives, the nicest wives in the league, and well, none of your teams made the top five. Elko, Minoka, Rockford, Milltown, and Lonsdale were in the top five. Jen, you got an honorable mention. Does that lead you to maybe be able to make an informed guess of who might be behind the Twitter thread?
I'm going to say I have no idea, and I'm going to be quite honest. I have a Twitter account that I never go on. So usually it's Ryan that's telling me his stuff on Twitter. I don't have any idea that anyone who meets me, I'm an extreme extrovert. I can make friends with the light bulbs or conversations. I'll just chat with whomever. So
Well, I love it. Certainly the wives on that list. I hope you take note of these five and make sure you introduce yourself when you see them, either at the playoffs or an upcoming game.
yeah, absolutely.
So getting back into some of the other lists that they've ranked in the past, concession stands, bathrooms, top fields. What are some of the things that stick out to you ladies in terms of a good experience at a ballpark?
I don't
I really like the ballparks that have like a playground close so the kids can be entertained a little bit, or like a big field that they can play in. Something kid friendly is one of high up on my list.
I love Alley Magnet for that too, with the sand or the volleyball. It's not a sandbox, but the volleyball courts right by the fields that turn into sandboxes.
Yes.
Yes. Bathrooms are always good. There's some fields you can really outhouses, and some of them take good care of them, and some of them are just completely freaking nasty. So, having the indoor like Big Willow is nice. Alley Magnet is nice. I don't really do much concessions because, of course, we bring our own snacks if I have any snacks. But I think people with littles, that's a bigger importance. I think.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing is the bathroom. That's like the one thing that I ask Dan every time. Like, what is the bathroom situation? Like, I have to know before we leave. And like, I know that Heather's texted me before as I'm on my way to the game, like a picture of the bathroom. Like, okay, like this is what we're dealing with. I just like I have to know, like for my sanity, what the bathroom situation is going to be.
And porta potties with 3 kids. If one has to go, then the rest of them say they have to go. And porta potties are not a place for a party. Like,
No.
it's just too much.
That's it.
Yeah, it would be awesome if there was a like crowdsourcing, reviewing clearinghouse for like a matrix of bathroom. Does the backstop have a net over the back for foul balls? Are you working with, like you said, a playground nearby? How's the distance from the parking lot to the field? Do you need to bring a wagon? Is this that kind of situation? I mean, the castle, I think it's called the Castle Field up in Anoka, is like
Yeah.
so epic, amazing.
Yes.
Up there, there'd be 5 stars for a couple of fields at least in the league, I think. And then like Cindy can know what she's working with before she gets there.
Yeah, she wouldn't need the advanced scouting report. She would just be able to log on to this site and see the bathroom pictures herself.
Yes.
And yeah, when Castle Field had that bounce house and everything for the All-Star game, that was absolutely rock star for all parents.
We could have
I
like
think
Charmin.
Delano's a really
Really good
nice
for
field too. They had the splash pad right next to it, and they had like a food truck or a snack truck there or something. And then there was the playground too. So I like Delano.
So I want to take a little bit deeper with some of our questions here and focus on some of the other experiences that are a little bit more impactful for family and for you as spouses and mothers, because your husbands have this baseball hobby. Would you say that the culture on your team is family friendly? Would you say it's an inviting and warm atmosphere for you and your families?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
And for those of you who do have young children, what has the impact kind of been on your kids? Have you seen um, their interests change at all by being around the game?
Yeah, I mean, our daughter loves it. She's only 6, and like these guys have like embraced her. She's like sitting in the dugout with them. She's got her batting helmet on. They like watch out for her. And you go to any Mammoth game and there's like little kids just running everywhere. And it's great. And the guys are really great with them. I got to give 2 shout outs, and one is to Maddie Grill. He like buys my kids stuffed animals.
A mammoth, an adorable
Yes.
stuffed animal.
He like went to the state fair, sought out this mammoth stuffy for her, brought it to her, and like she was so happy. And then my other shout out is to Bill Houseman, because he's like always looking out for her, and like that sticks with me. So we were in Arizona last year for the tournament, and she's playing around, and this other team hits a foul ball. She runs to grab it. The guy on the team gets mad, and he's like, "Hey kid, you need to bring that back." And before I could even like step in and say anything to help her out, she's my child, Billy's like, "You better be nice to her, you're not getting that ball back." I'm like, "Oh." And I'm like, "Thank you, like thanks for sticking up for my kid." And so like that's who the Mammoth are.
It's the same for the A's. They set up their own little baseball games on the sides of the fields. They have their little bucket of balls and rubber bases that they bring out. And I mean, we have the teenagers all the way down to the really little kids, and they all work together and play together. And I know my kids really, really love it. This past Sunday, we couldn't go to the game because my son had a birthday party, and my daughter was very upset that she couldn't go and play with her friends.
How have some of your relationships been impacted? I know Cindy and Whitney, you have a connection. Your husbands are first cousins, so you tend to be a little stuck with each other regardless. But has it enhanced your relationships of other moms on the team, other wives on the team? Have you met any new friends or deepened any of your existing relationships?
Yeah, I can give a shout out to Karen Wangler. She's a Mammoth wife. She's married to Ken. And I met Karen way back when they were the Lumberjacks. And so, Karen and I are like OG Lumberjills, and we have the t-shirts to prove it. So, and she's fantastic. And very much appreciate her friendship.
I've met a lot of really great people from this team. I not from Minnesota, so I didn't know a lot of people coming here, and now I've made some really super good friends. We have wives dinners, and we try to get together in the off season as often as we can, and it's just a lot of fun.
Heather, I know you have an existing connection with one of the other members on our panel as well. Very close in proximity, neighbor Whitney. Has being team wives and families, has that changed your neighborhood dynamic at all?
I get great intel about the calendar between Paul and Whitney and Tom and the front yard baseball games that happen with our kids. And like Paul and Tom will be asking each other if they're going to be to the game on Wednesday or Saturday. And all that. I mean, it's in our calendar, but you're kind of always in a day-to-day zone sometimes. And it's like, oh, all right, if they're going to go or carpooling, I think is a great way to kind of get to know the other players on the team. And Casey on the Mammoth is always a good backup for Tom when he needs a ride home if we have to leave the game early or something. So that's super helpful because it keeps us able to have our escape plan if it's running like a long game over bedtime or something. So instead of just maybe foregoing the whole thing, it's it's still possible to go.
Kind of touch on a couple of the challenges that are just presented by a 18 to 30 game schedule over a season. There's scheduling, there's bedtimes. You hit on a couple there, but what would you each individually say is your largest in-season challenge that is presented by the fact that your husband is pursuing this hobby?
Yeah, I travel a lot for work. So, I would say that's like the challenge of the hobby is just trying to figure out like covering our bases with like childcare and who's going to watch the kids when he goes to baseball games. But I mean, shout out to Paul, like he covers all of that. He knows that I'm gone for a week for work and he's just like, nope, I've got it. Whether it's your parents or my in-laws or, my sister, like he's like, I will figure out babysitting. And if we can't figure out babysitting, then, I make that choice to be with the kids. So, I think it's just schedule. It's the biggest challenge.
We don't really have challenges. We have teenagers and we split time with Kaylee's mom. So she's 16. She'll grumble about going to games sometimes, but then she gets there and she has fun. So otherwise, yeah, we don't have any littles. They have people that have littles are in a different situation.
You might not have any challenges regarding the children, but you mentioned earlier that Ryan's dealing with some injuries this season. Has that been common or has that been persistent? Any of your husbands really been injured seriously mid-season?
Yeah, my husband has the past 2 seasons. 2 seasons ago, he blew out his PCL, diving or doing a headfirst slide into second base. And he was out for the rest of the season. And then last season, we were playing in Chaska, and he was playing second base, and he was running in the outfield to go get a ball that was like a pop-up between center base and second, and he collided with the center baseman, and he was got a concussion. He was out for about a minute, a little bit more than a minute, had to be carried off the field. Thankfully, my kids were not at that game.
That's scary.
Yeah, it was. I happened to be pitching in that game, and he was out between a minute or two. But for those of you who might not know Brian Cogswell, he's just one of my absolute favorite players. He is, I would say, a cross between like a Nick Bunto, a guy that can play anywhere, and a Dustin Pedroia, where he just has a really high motor and plays the game all out all the time. In the parking lot when we finally had him loaded up to go to the emergency room to urgent care, he was asking about the score and if we had won the game. So just certainly lends to his personality, his competitiveness. But injuries are certainly a very real part of the game for a lot of us. I know that I've seen arms and wrists and fingers broken. I've seen concussions. I've seen and heard about broken arms mid-pitch, torn labrums, UCLs, PCLs, all the Ls.
That's Ryan. Well, he was being a bonehead last season and monkeying around. And so he had to have a labrum cleanup, a bicep repair in January. So he thought he was going to be back playing this year. And his doctor's like, oh, we're looking at 9 months. And so he couldn't see me. I was like, you thought you were going to be back this season. But he is sad. I feel bad because he was looking for it. I think he was about to hit or go up against for his 300th pitch or hit or something like that. So hopefully before the end of the season. But he had second game of the season where I think he took a swing, and I don't know if he felt something that freaked him a little bit. And I think he even left the game early and came home and he was feeling a little down. So so hopefully maybe by the end of the season, he can't do outfield at all, or he's a first baseman and field mostly, but he can't do any of that. He's just he's able to maybe do a little bit of batting. But
well, your husband is certainly he is on the cusp of a milestone. He has 292, I believe, with his one hit this year. He has 293 career hits. He's on the precipice of his 300th hit. He's the all-time hits leader in the Federal League history. He's 6th all-time in games played with 195. second in at bats. Certainly a very long and storied career, and we certainly are going to miss him for whatever time that he's out, and wish him a speedy and healthy recovery.
Thank you.
Heather,
Foster is trying to listen in. Who knows?
well, Heather, we can take some time to brag on your husband a little bit too. He's um, among players who have 75 or more at bats. He is the all-time leader in batting average. He's hitting .535. He is tied for second with 12 home runs. This being in the stat area, we call it, which covers the last 15 years of the Federal League. But you've mentioned that he's dealt with his share of injuries too.
I appreciate the stat report. I had no idea any of the numbers at all. But ABT behind me, I think one of those stat books is there. So I know that he gets into that because he's a math and science brain. He taught math and physics for 10 years and still teaches high school. But yeah, he broke his arm, I think, when our middle kid was about 6 months old, and I wasn't at that game, but he drove himself home from it, and then we quickly went to the ER and stayed there for a couple hours. Luckily, grandparents were in town to watch our older kid during that, but that was not fun. And then the other one I was there for when he, I think, was pitching or playing in field and went back for a pop fly, kind of like Megan's story, and collided with another player and cracked and broke some ribs, and I think he might have lost consciousness maybe for a little bit there too. And I don't know if it's better or worse if you're there for the injury or not. I mean, they're both just terrible to see or hear about it, because you probably imagine it almost worse than it is in some ways, but it's part of life, I guess. And as long as, they can do what they want to do for as long as they can. And like Jen, your story about, you gotta appreciate it when you can play, because you really miss it when you can't. And it does impact not just them, but kind of everybody else's balance too.
Absolutely.
Has there ever, whether it be your husband leading the conversation or something you're deciding as a family, has there ever been a moment where you start to say this, maybe the sacrifices aren't worth it, maybe the injuries are starting to pile up too much, maybe the scheduling is becoming just a little bit too difficult to figure out? Has there been a time where just maybe baseball shouldn't be the priority?
Sometimes I look, like I said, we're not getting any younger. I think sometimes I look playing 4 games a week is, I think, in my opinion, a lot on a 48-year-old body. I mean, obviously we don't recover as quickly. So I think some of that maybe wear and tear is impacting what is going on with his shoulder right now too. So, it basically out a little bit. So I think there was a few times last year with it like 4 games in a week, and then they'll start again the next week. And I just, not enough recovery time. Like I said, as we're getting older, that your body doesn't recover as quickly. So that's where probably some of these injuries might come into play.
So far, that hasn't been a talk yet at our house. This is like his stress reliever. This is his pride and joy. Like, baseball runs in our family. His dad played for the Apple Valley A's. Now he plays for the Apple Valley A's. And my son is now in the throes of starting, kid pitch. And it's just gone down generations. And I see how much he loves it. We try to be there to support him as often as we can. We even try to get a babysitter once a month, so I can go without the kids and still have fun and make it like a little date night. So there's no talks of that yet at our house.
Yeah.
All that. A couple of you finding a couple of different ways to keep romance and baseball intertwined. I love it.
I clarify, I'm not telling him to be done. I think it's one of those where it's a decision he has to make on his own, but I think maybe sometimes even he acknowledges the aches and pains. So
I think the overlap with like your kids on T-ball too, it's extra complicated. Plus, just May in general seems really hard as we're in it right now, I guess. With
And the school.
Tom's a teacher. I think some of the people on this group are teachers, and they're trying to finish up stuff. And spring sports are still rolling with kids, and we had to kind of have a conversation because I think Tom plays on more than one team. I lose track, but 2 or 3 teams, and yeah, May is just going to be a lighter month. He doesn't get to do 4 times a week. Like, that's not realistic for the rest of us. And Jen, I'm going to use your point. Maybe it's like better in the long run for bodies too.
Yeah.
What advice, and Whitney, maybe you can lead us on, but what advice would you give a wife who is just coming into this? Maybe they're new to the league, or maybe they're switching teams and they're meeting a new friend group. But what advice do you have for a wife who is either trying to assimilate into the Federal League or may not be aware of what she's in for?
I don't know. I mean, just come and have fun and talk to people. You know, I think everybody's there and like willing and open to talk to one another. And like, I think it's so great too. I think moms with like little kids as well. Everybody's just kind of there to help. Like, oh, like I can watch them for like a couple minutes if you need to run to your car or something like that. Like, that's always helpful. And just like everybody that I've been around has just been so wonderful. Like, there was one baseball game where my daughter, she fell and she pretty much like split her nose open and she was bleeding. And all of a sudden out of nowhere, this mom has like a whole bag of Band-Aids and gauze pads and like, you know, being able to sanitize her nose. And I'm just like, you are wonderful. Thank you. And that is just like how everybody is at these games. So just come and have fun.
Yeah.
I love that. Any other words of advice that you care to share around? I'd be remiss, I feel like, if I don't mention Dan and Paul's batting averages as well. But they've obviously both been veterans in the league. Dan's 420 career lifetime average and Paul's 444. I mean, so all of your husbands can play a lot of baseball. And so you've certainly been around the league a long time. But any other advice that you would share for wives that may be coming in new?
I would just say I want to see that schedule ahead of time. Because a lot of times at our house, it's, well, there's a game tonight. I'm like, well, what time are you leaving? And where is it? So
When will you be home?
yeah, when are you gonna be home? Like, so I would just say I want to see the schedule, a printed copy, please.
Not a calendar. It doesn't exist
Yeah.
in our house.
Well, there is a schedule available on the Federal League website, so you could
Oh.
certainly navigate there. You would see game time. You would probably not see the posted parking lot time. That does vary from game to game. So win or lose, certainly an enjoyable part of the festivities for men in our league. I can't thank each of you enough for sharing and for taking the time to be on the podcast. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of all of the wives of the Federal League, just for the sacrifices and the things that you take on so that we can continue to play this game that we love a little bit longer. Thank you. Very grateful for all of you and all of the wives of the Federal League.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
you.
That's all the time we have on this edition of Fed Up. A special thank you to some of the real housewives of the Federal League for joining today's podcast. And a special thank you to all of the wives in the league as they continue to support their players and their teams as we all continue to play this game that we just absolutely love. Tune in next week. We'll have another full scoreboard recap. We will have an updated Fed Up Power Rankings. We will also have special guest Chris Miner of the South Metro Saints. He's the genius behind some of the content that they put out that you've seen it, you've enjoyed it. Really looking forward to spending some time with him and hearing just a little bit more about his process. See you next time.